Well, good afternoon and welcome to the principal's office. I am Principal Edward Gordon. I am so glad you have tuned in for this weekly broadcast where we will be interviewing education stakeholders who have made a significant impact for themselves, for others, and with others in education. Today is a special episode because it marks our 26th episode. This journey began on January 8th, and throughout this year, we have had retired and current teachers, administrators, educational specialists sharing their story and journey in education, guests from the United States and other countries. I'm excited for this platform to learn more from great leaders and share their wisdom with the world. Today, I want to welcome to the show Alvaro Nieves. Good afternoon, Alvaro.
Yeah, yeah.
Good afternoon. Well, it is so excited because Alvaro Nieves is a student at Banyan School in Little Falls, New Jersey. He enjoys reading, and his favorite store is Barnes and Noble. He likes to watch football, baseball, hockey, and basketball. His favorite teams are great for New York teams like the New York Giants, New York Knicks, the New York Rangers, and New York Yankees. He loves to listen to TED Talks and learn more about the human brain. So again, welcome to the show, Alvaro Nieves. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get started, Alvaro. And just want to start off by allowing you to just share your story with the audience. Tell us more about yourself and your journey.
I actually go by Albie first off.
His nickname is Albie.
Okay.
Alvaro.
I just put that there.
Yeah, his name. Everybody knows him as Albie. So
Yeah.
his formal name, but his nickname is Albie. So you feel free to call him Albie. Okay, so go ahead, Albie.
Um, well, when I was born, I I was told that my mom got rushed to the hospital because my mom got really sick the night before, and my mom was like really sick. So my dad came home from a football game. My dad had to drive my mom to the hospital. And then once my mom got to the hospital, they rushed her in because the doctors told my mom that it was time for her to we were it wasn't looking good. It was time to die.
I was critical. I developed HELLP syndrome,
Yes.
so I had to have an emergency C-section.
That was the only way.
Which he was basically first day of his 28th week, and he was put in the NICU, 2.1 pounds. He was born, and immediately, he had difficulty breathing, and
Yes.
total NICU was 9 months. Just real quick, 4 was in here in New Jersey, and he spent 5 months at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
But the doctors over here in New Jersey, they weren't really good. They told my parents there's nothing we can do for him here. It's best if we take him home and let him get comfortable, and then that's it. Until one day, nurse out there told my mom, you can't listen to the doctors. You have to go to the Children's Specialized Hospital in Philadelphia because they're the only place that is equipped for your illness. And I went there on helicopter. My mom was in the car with my grandmother, her mom, and they were driving there. And my uncle was talking to the doctor on the phone. And when we got there,
Your uncle, explain what your uncle does.
my uncle's a doctor in Italy, and he wasn't there for my arrival, but he was very concerned about my condition, so he wanted to fill in to see what the doctors in America were saying. So, and the ENT specialist, of course. So finally we got to the hospital. They said, we can do a surgery, a trach surgery. And we found a pulmonologist. They, the hospital recommended a pulmonologist who actually just basically saved my life. He put a trach. He injected it. He did perform the surgery. A trach a tracheostomy.
Tracheotomy.
And he did put a feeding tube in, and I also had a feeding tube. But because of my condition, the doctors weren't sure how much I can do, so they kept giving my mom and dad these misdiagnosis. What they told my mom and dad, I wasn't gonna walk, talk, or eat. I'd be in the wheelchair. Basically, I'd be a paraplegic, quadriplegic the rest of my life.
He had genetics. He had something genetically wrong with him, and he was diagnosed with the correct syndrome at 11 years old at CHOP by a very very big.
Famous.
Well, yes, he is famous. Doctor.
Dr. Levine.
Dr. Levine, who studied in parapseudohypothyroidism. He actually worked under or with the main person who discovered this syndrome. And when the doctor, it was amazing because we've seen endocrinologists, CHOP, geneticists, they did biopsies, everything. This doctor literally walked into the room, looked at him,
And diagnosed.
And said, just let me see your hands. He asked me a few questions. Well, fortunately, my father was there, and he goes, you have a PHP type 1A, parapseudohypothyroidism, which I'm a carrier, which I received from my father's side. We never knew this. Unfortunately, because he was already 11 and with the syndrome, he hit puberty early, and his growth plates were closing. There was no chance of us getting any sort of growth hormone to help him grow a little taller or help him in any way. So he remains at 4'8". Had we caught it earlier, he may have been 5 foot, maybe. But the syndrome caused a lot of problems. On top, there's the syndrome, and then obviously the things with being born prematurely. He had a bleed in the brain. When I was in the hospital, I suffered a stroke, a uterine stroke. So there was a period in utero where he was without oxygen. So long story. I'm sorry if I jumped in with him. I just wanted to help anybody who's seeing this understand that,
No problem.
From one hospital who was ready to send him home
To die.
Basically to die, and that same day a very special nurse who told me, who actually pulled me aside and said, if this comes out, I will lose my job. She goes, but you need to get him out of here and get him to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They're going to send him home, and you're going to wake up one morning and it's not going to be good for you or him. That same day, within 8 hours, he was transported to Philadelphia. So the same day we were getting discharged, we ended up requesting Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and within 8 hours, we were there. It was about midnight when I got there, and they had him in a very, very high alert room. There was I forgot what it was. It was a blue code, and that means somebody in the NICU is
dying.
Yes, there's an issue, and that first night, like 20 doctors would run over, and they didn't know what to do. And by that time, I had learned with him, because he was so small, I would put him on the palm of my hand, belly down, up, and I would just hit him on his back a little bit, just to get him to get that breath, and then he would breathe. Because what was happening is when he was born, the villi inside of the lining of the lungs were not developed. So his lungs would, when he was breathing, collapse at the bottom. He had a weak trachea, so it went from the bottom of his lungs up. So we had to kind of open everything up, and they would try bagging him, but it was collapsed. They couldn't open it. But for some reason, the position I would have him in, and I would do that, it would make him, I don't know why, but he would just turn pink again and cry. And they were like, "Why? How did you learn to do it? Why? Who taught you that? Why are you doing that?" Because as a mother, seeing 20 specialists to run to your son's bed, and they're telling you to stay back because they think you as a mother are is afraid and wants to be there. And I'm like, no, get out of the way. I know how to help. You know, sometimes doctors, they have to listen to the parents, and I think the parents have to be the biggest advocate for their child, especially if they know for past history what's going on. So when I did that, they kind of eased up on me a little bit. But they, unfortunately, because he was up to 20 of those episodes a day, the more episodes, the more brain damage. So they had put him on a drug which basically paralyzed him. I cannot remember the name of this drug. So the machine would do the breathing for him. He couldn't move. He couldn't do anything. He just was on one side and breathing. When finally, after they did tests, we requested a pulmonologist, which is Dr. Howard Panich down at CHOP, and he ran one test only. He put a vest on him. Test lasted half an hour, and then he came back to me and said, "Don't worry, this is what's wrong with your son. His lungs weren't fully developed. We're going to give him a trach. He's going to be on a ventilator, so we give his lungs time to heal and grow, and from there, in maybe 3-4 years, he will be no longer, you know, we could take the trach out." He did it in 2.5 years. Like
One by myself.
Well, yeah, and he was a fighter from the beginning, because if I wasn't in the room and he wanted my attention, but this is more home with 24-hour nursing care. Nursing shortage at the time, so there were days I would be the nurse for like 48 hours straight. He would pull his trach out to get my attention.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like, pull the thing out. Yeah. So I had to re-put the whole thing in, and he was just a fighter. And then the day before he started a BIPI program here in our town, it's for children with special needs. They go in from, they start at age 3, and they just start getting them acclimated and services through the school. He, the day before he was supposed to go to school, he pulls out his G-tube, his feeding tube. I go to, change him and dress him, and I see the hole. I'm like, "Albie, what did you do with your tube?"
"I don't know."
And that's exactly what he said. "I don't know." And he's laughing. Look through, he must have threw it out, because I checked the whole house, everything, couldn't find it. He says, "I don't need it. I don't want it." He didn't want to go to school with the feeding tube. And the nurse had to go to special classes on knowing how to change the G-tube, how to clean it, and just for emergency. I called the doc, his specialist, his pediatrician, and I said, "Listen, this is what happened." He goes, "Is he drinking enough by mouth? And if he's eating enough by mouth, let it go. The hole is still there. We could still put it in." But from that point on, he just loved his pasta and his pudding.
But then that involved me having that. But then I realized that until now, the speech therapist, she realized why I had trouble eating.
Right, because of that amount of time between being trached and he was actually on an intubator, not trached, in the hospital for 6 months. So that affected his whole palate.
And nobody.
And his whole, like, the way we speak and the way our tongue moves. He didn't have normal access to that. He never sucked from a bottle. He never developed certain skills. So
she diagnosed me with apraxia.
Finally, last year
or 2 years ago.
2 years ago, we finally found a speech teacher. Says, "You know what? He has apraxia." Like, what was his story? She was one of the few speech pathologists who was actually interested
Her name is
in
Carolyn Maso.
And she wanted to know, like, what's going on. So we took it back. She took it back to the beginning, to taking a stick with a little gum thing on it, like a sponge, just to rub around his mouth, so he could start feeling the sensation in his mouth, how to move it, because he wasn't able to do that. He would still have a very difficult time eating food and swallowing. He would chipmunk it like a squirrel, and then drink water, trying to get the food down.
Even now, even though I'm making progress, even now it's hard for me.
It's still a challenge,
but I'm getting better at it with her help.
and then now that everybody's aware, we all kind of give them cues, lessons, like, Albie, watch the size. Put your hands on, please. Yeah, okay. So I just wanted, like, we came home. He was born November 15th, 1999, and he came home August 20th of
2020.
No, August 20th. No, you were 99. He came home August 20th, 2000.
2000.
And I had weekly trips to Philadelphia for his follow-ups every week. I was doing basically 5-hour drives, 3 or 6 hours, taking him in the morning and coming back same day. And just for, parents out there that find themselves, if they're scared to go to Philadelphia or anything, the Ronald McDonald House is one of the greatest, what's the word I'm looking for? It's one of the best things for the parents, for people that are struggling financially, whose children are in the hospital and they need to stay somewhere. They shelter, they give me food. They charged minimal depending on where you were from, how long you were there. If I hadn't had that, I don't know what I could have been able to do. So a big shout out to the Ronald McDonald House. And, when they say it's for that, it's a great organization, because it truly does help parents who, especially, I was alone. I was 24 years old. I was 25. We had just gotten married. Yeah. And I considered myself a baby. Looking back now, all those years, I never went away to college. I went from home to marriage. So.
And then my mom, years later, then you got sick.
Well, I was diagnosed with lupus by back when I was like 18 years old, but it was mild. And then I would develop flare-ups once I started going to college and working. The stress of everything, I got into a very bad flare-up, and then they diagnosed me as systemic lupus. Like, I was positive for SLE. But it would go into remission. I wasn't going to have any more children, because, he was doing well, but still, it was a handful. And plus I had to work. It's hard to live on a one family income. So me and my husband really had to struggle. But I knew that he needed I grew up in a big family. I have 4 siblings. So I'm 5. So
Angelina's 5.
Well, I have 4 plus me. Anyway. So he has to question everything I say.
I understand it, but I would just say that, Albie, how old are you right now?
21.
You're 21 years old, and definitely your mother has mentioned it, and I didn't get a chance to formally introduce your mother to the show, but Miss Trisha Nieves, and I'm so thankful that both of you have agreed to come on to the show this afternoon and share your story. Another thing that came out by what you said in terms of that Albie is a fighter, and that is definitely part of his journey, but also overcoming. Many doctors and nurses have counted him out, but I'm so glad that he's here, 21 years old, able to share his story. And I'm just excited as we continue this conversation this afternoon to hear more about the process and the journey. One question I have is about education. What was the support like through these years of education for you, Alvi, and also you can give your perspective as a mother in terms of the support over these years? You share with the audience.
To tell you the truth, it wasn't that, great.
It wasn't a very smooth. I think right now, because we're in the middle of with IEP and the governor and everything, he's maybe a little nervous to talk about currently.
I'm not afraid.
Well, no, it's best if we, just let that go. But we've had to fight with our school district, because they no school district wants to shell out thousands of dollars to get students out of, they think that they could do what they want there. Finally, at high school level, the high school didn't have a program for him, so they were put him into another district's high school program. I wish as a mother I fought a little harder, because those 4 years he spent at this one high school actually made him go backwards
and get more.
He became more depressed. He became more aggravated and agitated, and it was because it was 4 years of the same teachers, the same subjects, the same stuff. A lot of the young adults in the class had a lot of physical or what's that, rage issues, and they were.
And I
that wasn't his issue. He was very scared of loud noises and fighting, and that kind of built a wall around him.
Yeah, when I saw my first fight, I kind of got really scared.
In the lunchroom, he had never experienced a fight in a school lunchroom.
It got to the point where they had to take me to the guidance counselor because I was really scared. They had to give me a cup of water.
Yeah, so but then fortunately we fought because of issues, and we were able to get him into Banyan, which he is at now. And I'm glad to say they have gone above and beyond the 4 years he spent at the one high school in their program. And they looked at each child individually. And as a parent, if you feel your child is not being heard, or if you hear excuse, or, they blame me because I wasn't able to go to IEP meetings because I was in a flare-up and I couldn't show up, they would try and have it without me present.
They did.
So you have to, as much as your child wants to advocate for themselves, and you should let them go, you just still have to always be on the background thinking about, is this really addressing his needs? Or are they just going by a playbook? This is the book, this is what you do, this is how you handle it. But what happens to those kids that have a rare syndrome that no one's heard of? They get lost in the crowd. So I feel bad because he was sad and depressed, and I should have, picked up the ball sooner. But he finally, that's why now he got an extra year at Banyan. They're giving him all of the therapies he needs, and they're preparing him for adulthood. They're preparing him to try and be self-sufficient.
One of the teachers for first year at the school, you were different since the second year or third year.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to say, Cynthia, is for you, you should be celebrated. Okay. I know that it's been not an easy road, but even from the very beginning, in the hospitals, you were your son's advocate. Okay. And also when it comes into the schooling and the program and support, you continue to be his advocate, and you're still his advocate today. And I just want to celebrate you for your advocacy. And that is something that I want to encourage all parents to understand, that they do have a voice, that they're important. And one thing you mentioned is about the fact that IEP, individual educational plan, every child is different, and it should be individualized, and many times it's not. And that's why it's important for parents to continuously understand their rights, and also understand the power of their voice. But I just want to celebrate you for continuously being Alvy's advocate all through this journey. So I just want you to understand that. Okay.
I want other parents to know that it's not easy. It's hard to find somebody to help you. It just takes a lot of networking, and no matter what level of life or stage of life you're at, your voice is free. And if one person won't listen to you, somebody else will. You just have to keep talking until that somebody says, wait a minute, I can help you. I know what you're talking about. I can help you. Don't give up. You just keep pushing and keep talking. Like There was no reason for that nurse to come to me and tell me that. But she saw the dedication and how he was, that she said, get him out of here, take him somewhere else, which was risky. So as a parent, just as hard as it is, you know, how many times you cried in the shower, whatever, you advocate so that they can learn to advocate your child, because they will follow what you do. And he has learned that because I've become sick and
It's hard for me and my sister.
Right. I'm not where I was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that he's taken the ball. He's actually taken the ball and run with it. He's like shooting for that, you know.
I found Principal Gordon from Maori, I guess, and he friended me, and then that's how we got.
Right. Well, you know, I just hope that you can inspire, you know, other kids that.
Yes. And then, oh, we got to mention something. I guess, and I'm still struggling with my vision. Like, you know, my
He has
vision.
He has healthy eyes, but he has a vision impairment where his spatial is not where it should be. So, besides the cerebral palsy and the walking difficulty, if you were to go down a regular curb, he can't tell if it's 4 inches, 12 inches.
It looks like a mountain.
It looks like he's going to step down and fall over, so he can't see. And this was something I've been fighting for from the beginning. And now finally, we got a lawyer. We had to get a lawyer who was very kind enough to help us pro bono. There are good people out there. And she said, no, we're going to get you approved. You're going to get to, just like there's blind people who learn how to walk, whatever. Your life shouldn't stop because you're afraid to go around the corner because you're going to trip on a little, you know, lip in the curb.
That's my goal for September, is to have, either way, I know I'm getting occupational physical therapy and speech, but that's my goal, is to get vision services at my school no matter what, starting September.
They're very, very good. And I hear it already, Miss. I would say Mr. Evans. I know you want to be called. I hear already your advocacy and how it has transferred over to Albie in reference to what he is seeking as he continues in September. And I just wanted to go back to something that Albie mentioned. You seek me out to be on this show and this platform today through the connection of a shared support advocate, Miss Mallory DeMarco. And, you know, we've had some scheduling conflicts over the last couple of months, but I'm glad that we are finally here today. But I want to open it up at this period of time. You wanted to share and be inspirational to others, okay? And as we, just continue this time together and close out shortly, what is your message that you want to share with others to be able to encourage them?
I mean, don't give up. I mean, there's been times like I had a bunch of surgeries, but don't give up. No matter how hard it is, just don't give up and keep on going.
What made you focus though? What was your inspiration to not give up about it?
My inspiration was, I realized, you know, sometimes it's hard for me. Everybody has a gift inside them, so you gotta keep on going. And just you only get one trip around the sun, so you may as well fight to the end. And I learned that from my teacher, Matthew Withers. Shout out to him. He's out there.
Very good. You shared such a message in reference to you only have one trip around the sun, one life. And also you mentioned about the fact that everyone has a gift inside of them. And your gift is important to be expressed to others. And if you don't use that gift to help others and to change this world, then it's a wasted gift. And I'm so glad that you have understood that at this young age and inspired to be able to come on the principal's office to share your story, your journey, and to leave this message. And I applaud you, Albie, for your journey and the fight and your courageous ability and your inspiration. And I just thank you for the message that you have shared this afternoon. Miss Tricia, what is a message that you would have for parents that might be in similar situations and challenges? What is something that you would like to say to them?
Just have faith. Never stop believing. Nothing's impossible. If you don't get the answer, or you get an answer you're not satisfied with or don't understand, go somewhere else. Because there's a world of information out there. There's people that are willing to help. Just have faith. And it gets hard. But the harder, I've realized that the harder my obstacle, once I overcome that obstacle, the greater the victory. It makes the fight a little bit, easier, because you said, you know what, I got over that. I overcame that with him. We won. Now this next obstacle has to be even harder, so that we can keep growing and keep moving forward. If you stay stagnant and you don't do anything, then unfortunately that leads to a plateau in the development of your child, family, self. I mean, you need to love yourself, forgive yourself. We're all human, but always remember the objective of the fight, what you're fighting for. I think that's very important.
Very good. Well, I just want to say thank you, Albie, as well as Trisha Nieves, for coming on the show and to share your story, share the journey, and also giving words of inspiration to other students as well as to parents. And this is why this particular show began on January 8th. And I'm so glad that both of you are able to be on this milestone episode, episode 26, marking the end of 6 months on this journey. And I just want to say, both of you, thank you very much for being on the show this afternoon. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Principal's Office. And I would like to say to join me next Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another exciting episode where we hear another amazing educational stakeholder sharing their story and how to motivate and inspire and make a life of significance for themselves, for others, and with others in education. So thank you very much for being on the show, and have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.